Good morning. Happy Thursday to you. I hope you're doing well. You know, we humans and our dogs, as young mammals, spend unprecedented time with our caregivers. And these caregivers form a sort of safe haven, allowing us to freely explore our world, but yet return back to the safe haven in times in which we're anxious or we feel threatened. Now, unfortunately, what happens sometimes is that the safe haven is perceived by the child or by your dog as unpredictable. And the availability or access to the safe haven can be cut off at times, and their behavior is erratic. And when that happens, the child and the young mammal will try to turn their unpredictable environment into a predictable environment by taking control of it, using what's called controlling behaviors. And I want to show you an example of that today on this video. And let me just kind of give you a little backstory on it. The dog in the video, her name is Sam. She's a very sweet female Chihuahua Boston Terrier mix. And her owner has so graciously allowed me to show clips of my evaluation of her just last week. And it's just a wonderful example of a dog trying to control its environment. Now, why would this dog think that its owner was unpredictable or maybe unavailable? Was because for 2 years, half of this dog's life, it spent only time with this owner. It was during the pandemic. She would work from home. The dog had no access to any other humans during that time. And this became a very powerful and very reliable safe haven. But then, as the pandemic started to ease, this dog's owner returned back to work and suddenly throwing the dog into an anxious state. Now it's unpredictable. She goes to work, then she doesn't. Then she does, then she doesn't. And her behavior, when I feel anxious and feel threatened, she doesn't seem to chip in enough. And again, that's the dog's perception, certainly not the owner's perception. And the result is this dog has bitten a few people, guests that have come over to the house. It's unable to discern what are threatening, real valid threatening human gestures and what are not. And it's relying upon its owner to kind of help guide it. Come on, let me be that safe haven. And when that owner doesn't become that safe haven at that moment, you'll see the dog take over and use controlling behaviors. So here we go. In this video here, I'm sitting on a stool, and this is within the first 10 minutes of this dog's arrival. And the owner's here on the bench, and I'm interviewing her, going over what's called her behavioral assessment form. Now, I don't have audio on this because you'd overhear me talking to her, and a lot of this information is private, is held with us, and for confidential reasons. And I didn't want you to hear that. Plus, you just hear Sam letting me have it. But this is Sam trying to control the environment. She's dragging her leash around in the room. So I'll go ahead and start the video. And again, some wonderful teaching moments. I tried to offer a treat, not having it. The dog is trying to control me. And in essence, what is the dog trying to do? The dog is trying to keep me on that stool. The dog perceives me as a threat, even though I'm just parked up on a stool, asking questions of the dog's owner and listening to her give me her testimony. Not the least bit threatening in what we would perceive as a possible threat to the dog. But nevertheless, it's up to the dog's perception. So we roll it some more. And you see the owner sitting still. So the dog looks back at the owner right at that moment. So let me just kind of pause that and turn that back just 1 second here. Look at the dog look back at its owner right there. I'm looking back. What are you doing? Is my safe haven close by? Is my safe haven going to chip in at this moment and protect me from this dangerous guy sitting up on this stool? It looks back to its owner. Also notice the tail. The tail has what we call left side bias, meaning it's ticking more to the left side of the dog's body. That means it's being driven by the right brain hemisphere, which then indicates that the animal is afraid or anxious at that moment. So now I'll continue to roll the film. And the dog is doing a great job of keeping Bryan up on the stool. But then in a few seconds, I decide I'm going to hop down. And immediately the dog attacks. Not once, not twice, but give it a good old 3 or 4 times. And then it finally backs up. And I just hold my foot out and I go, what the heck here? So now I'm very smart. I've been doing this for a while. I climb back on my stool. I take my own safe haven. And back on the stool I go. Now, a few minutes later, I take the dog away from its owner. And I move up into a lobby area. And I'm just trying to hit my pause button there. There we go. And now I'm sitting right here in the lobby. And when I do this, there I am, in the lobby. I take the dog away from its owner, away from its safe haven, to see how this young dog can handle that situation. What does it do? Do I suddenly become the safe haven for the dog? So let's find out. And we'll now go ahead and roll it. And look at the dog. Suddenly the dog that tried to bite me multiple times is in my lap. And even turns up here and decides to go ahead and give me a little lick in the face in just a second. Now you can see me leaning back. There you go, I'm leaning back. This is one of those initial success or total failure propositions right now. But this is a dog who now perceives me as a safe haven. Now in this situation here, we're back in the room, and now this time I've asked the owner to leave the room. And you'll see the dog very anxious, sitting on my foot, making sure that I can touch my secure base. I became the secure base in that moment. But notice, every time I try to touch the dog, notice the wagging of the tail. And I'm going to repeat that again just real quick. Pay close attention to that. Because again, a wagging tail does not necessarily mean that I'm okay at this moment, that you're free to pet me. There was no doubt in my mind, had I touched this dog at that moment, I probably would have been bitten by Sam. And again, there's that tail looking at me like, no, don't touch me. I can touch you, but you can't touch me. Different shifting perceptions. And again, this is the guy who offered the dog a treat. This is the guy that the dog had just jumped in the lap momentarily. The guy that the dog tried to lick in the face, watching me, looking back at me. And then finally here, I'm standing, and the dog is on a leash, so we took away the option to flee, the option to control the environment. And now what you'll see instead is that I'm going to go ahead and highlight it here. So I'll pause it for a second, hit my pen here, and then I'm going to circle this area here. So pay attention to this area here. If I can get my pen to work. Come on, pen, do me a job. There we go. Notice the dog right there is hidden behind the owner. So the owner now reverts back to the safe haven because I took away the dog's ability to control the environment. And so now it peeks out from between its owner's legs, hiding safely underneath the bench and underneath its owner. Okay. The moral of the story is that these things can happen. This owner has had this dog since she was 8 weeks old. A lot of this is genetic driven. This animal was predisposed to have any sort of change in its environment, alter its behavior very erratically. Some animals went through COVID, through the pandemic, like Teflon. It didn't stick to them. They just rolled right through it. Captain, my dog, was one of those. Rolled right through it. No big deal. Others, a huge deal. And unfortunately with this dog, this behavior right now, this dog's misperception of someone having a seat in her home or me sitting up on a stool as so threatening that it feels it must control my behavior, every action that I take. Otherwise, its life is in jeopardy. That condition is beyond normal training. Conventional training will not work for this dog. And hence why this dog is now rolling on to a few medications that we will use to control the dog's arousal column. Because when you're high enough to attack, that you feel you need to control that environment. You need to make Bryan get back on that stool. And then all of a sudden, your mind switches completely 180 degrees. And suddenly, Bryan is the guy I tried to bite, the guy on the stool. Bryan is the guy that I now need to hop in his lap, and Bryan, please save me. And you're gonna forgive that little biting tip I did just a few minutes ago, right, Bryan? We good now, right? And then back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. And when you see this, you're dealing with a wee bit of a mental illness. Shifting perceptions. And no training by itself is going to help this sweet little girl. This is where medications must be brought in to control the dog, to lower that arousal. Stretch that ceiling of where I want to panic or I feel like I need to attack. This dog was severely distressed. We can trap it chemically at a lower level to a concern level. I'm okay if Sam walks in here and goes, all right, so that guy on that stool over there, we good, right? He's not going to attack me and kill me, right? And you're going to be here for me, right? I can deal with that. We can train that. We can suggest different strategies for handling that situation. We can pose different gestures and teach the animal, hey, that's really not threatening. I think the guy was actually trying to give me a treat. But we can't do that at those upper levels that I've spoken about in previous videos, in which the animal is no longer focused on anything but the darn guy sitting on that stool having a normal conversation with this owner. The owner now starts to disappear. The safe haven disappears. You're not doing anything. You're unpredictable. I'm going to take matters into my own hand. But the big key issue here is, why did you feel you needed to take matters into your hand? You are 4 years old. How many humans have jumped off a stool and attacked you? None. How many humans have attacked you, period? None. This owner is an incredible owner, very responsible, very caring. Her unpredictability came in the form of, I have to go to work. I can't be here for you at all times. And her misguided attempts to reassure her dog. It's okay when her dog was growling at her guest. Oh, all you're doing is saying, I'm here, I'm the safe haven, so you just go for it. And if everything goes south, you can come right back here to me. It doesn't work that way. So welcome to my world. I'm going to be showing you in the future here over the next several weeks more and more and more of these cases so you can see for yourself. And so that if you have some sort of bias towards using psychopharmaceutical medications to help your dog, I hope I can change that. I hope I can make you more comfortable, because this won't be lifelong. This is about 4 to 6 months. Use medication, calm the dog down. Now let's go to work. Let's counter condition. Let's teach you how to do a behavior where you lay down right here and watch humans from a distance. Let's take the control of the human out of your repertoire. Why don't you worry about controlling yourself? Why don't we change the perception of my owner as a safe haven I can always rely upon? And if I can't, I can handle it myself. I can deal with it myself. So stay tuned for more. And if you have any questions about this video, please send them to me. I'll be glad to answer them. And stay tuned for another video. I have a couple more coming out this week. Enjoy the rest of your day.